The time has come. The mystery deck. What deck do you possess? I can feel the power. No, it's not powerful. It's just cheap. I mean, it's not the cheapest I own. That was a bit of a. It wasn't clickbait. It's just a bit of a brain fart, as I call it. So the cheapest deck I own is called Appliancer. It's not even a playable deck at the moment. I've tried inserting it in other engines. I've tried to insert it with a Mech Knight engine. I tried to insert it with an Invoked engine. I tried to insert it with like a Time Thief engine even. It's just, I don't have any good engines for it. So that, even though it's my cheapest, isn't good. And it also doesn't hold out on its own. So technically it's not a deck, it's an engine. It's why I also don't really say Battle Wasp is my cheapest deck, because Battle Wasp, yeah, it's cheap, but it's more of an engine. Like I run with Wind Witch and Speedroid, so it's not really a deck per se. This, however, I spent about 30 quid and I had pretty much an entire deck. I did add little bits here and there, hence why I say about 30, maybe 40 if you run this exact, but the deck itself is extremely cheap. It's not terrible. It's actually kind of good. Not like, oh my god, I'm going to do amazing good, but kind of my standards are good. So, enough dilly-dallying. I'm going to open it off camera. I'm going to take the extra deck out. So, you can see that's ready for the things. And then I'm going to put this upside down. And then I am going to ready tenyi. Yes, tenyi is extremely cheap right now. Even its rarest card, which I think is like I want to say its rarest card is either Shaman or the Link 4, and even they are like £1 each, just over £1 each. So it is so cheap. It's so cheap. I bought the entire playset of everything for about £30, and then obviously I added my own little bits and bobs. So hope you guys enjoy. So if you don't know how Tenyi plays, basically you get a ton of special summons and effects if you don't control an effect monster. Well, you get all of the Tenyi special summons just themselves if you don't control an effect monster, which includes just having no monsters at all. And then you have non-effect link monsters, and then they have banishing effects that if you control a non-effect monster, so like a token, a normal monster, one of the normal non-effect links. So it's like a very kind of control-y deck, but also kind of powerhouse deck at the same time. It's weird. I like it though. It's a fun playstyle. So let's go into it. I have 3 Adhara. Also, I don't know why I did the whole reveal thing, because it's going to be in the title. It's literally going to be in the title. I'm going to be like Tenyi Deck Pro. I don't know why I did that. But anyway. So, actually, what I might do is I'll probably just put Mystery Deck Profile 2020. And then put what deck it is in the description. And then like around about Boxing Day-ish, I'll update the title. I don't know. But anyway, 3 Adhara. It's the tuner of the deck, because there is a synchro. Plus it has a good banishing effect to add a banished Tenyi back to hand. So you can just re-banish it for its effect, which is really good. So the synchro is kind of good in this deck as well. So you do want to run Adhara to synchro, but you also want to run Adhara to get back your Ashuna, which is going to be the next one I show you. So we now have Tenyi Spirit Ashuna. Ashuna's effect, don't let its level intimidate you, because as I said, they just literally send them, like, get themselves on board. So you can banish it from hand or grave. All the Tenyis can banish from hand or grave for the banish effect. So Ashuna's effect, basically special summon a Tenyi from your deck that isn't Ashuna. That's it. Which doesn't sound good, but like, 'cause it sounds like, oh, it's only that, but that's actually really crazy in this deck. It really extends your plays. So basically you literally Ashuna to get a level 7 out, which isn't itself, because obviously you can't get itself out. Then you normal summon Adhara, and then you synchro with Adhara and the other level 7 and go into the synchro. Normally that's your second turn of play that you do that, but it's still possible on your first turn, kinda. Just wouldn't be that great. So for the other level 7 that you summon off of it, we're running 3 again. Basically, we're going to be running 3 of every tenyi monster, but I'm going to go through them one by one because a lot of people have tenyi cards because it was in a really well bought out set that wasn't full of good cards. And no one really read the effects because they're like, oh, it's another 10, you chuck it. But the shoulda is basically the banish effect is to bounce a card on your opponent's field back to the hand. Bear in mind, like, none of these are quick effects, so these are during your turn, so it is still kind of bad. One of them does have a quick effect though, we'll go into that later though. But they're not the greatest, but obviously what you're doing is you're setting up, getting yourself like really powerful non-effects, and then you have effects to like screw your opponent over, and then obviously the synchro is quite good when we get into that. So it's not bad. Next we're going into the level 4s, which we start with Chiffon. I don't know how to pronounce this one. To be honest with you, some of them have really difficult names for at least me to fucking pronounce. I have no clue how to pronounce this one, because if I get it up there and try to focus it. Shthana. Shifana. I don't know. Anyway, this one's effect, Engrave, is it's basically a floating effect. It's not a quick effect though, so it will have to be during your turn if I remember correctly. But basically, you have a tenyi non-effect. It attacks, gets destroyed by battle or card effect, and then you basically banish this from grave or hand and go, lol, I get one of my cards back. So it helps you when it comes to if you have to crash with your tenyi. So like if you have there's a token creator that creates tokens with the exact same attack as one monster you choose. So what you do is you create the token, attack with a token, get the token destroyed. This wouldn't work because the token wouldn't be able to come back, so it won't be engraved. But you see what sentiment it's trying to give. So it's okay, but as I said, it's mostly run just because it's a tenyi monster, because you need to run all the tenyi monsters at 3 for consistency's sake. Next we have 3 of this boy. This is the quick effect one. So the quick effect is basically, if your opponent activates a card or effect that targets a non-effect monster that you control, you can banish this card from your hand or grave to negate the activation. And if you do, destroy it. As I said, quick effect. It's like the only quick effect, which is kind of dumb, but also kind of understandable. Some of these effects would be broken if they were quick effects. Bear in mind, you can only activate all of these when there's a non-effect, so you do need to create a non-effect to be able to use any of these effects that I'm talking about. So, and then for the final tenyi monster, because it's literally, they don't have many, hence why I said run 3 of each, we have Nahata. Like, more like the Mad Hatter, am I right, boys? Anyway, so with Nahata, you're basically just making your opponent lose attack points. So this is also a quick effect. So what you do is you attack a monster, banish Nahata, and it loses 1,500 exactly. I don't know where they get 1,500 from, because its attack is 800 and its defense is 1,000, but whatever. 1,500, which doesn't sound like much, but again, when it comes to like how powerful these non-effects can be, especially since you can get a token with the same attack as one of your opponent's monsters, it makes a lot of difference. It does make a lot of difference, and it can make you easily attack over something that you weren't able to attack over before. Next we have the hand traps. I would run Nibiru in this because this is a very control-y deck, but there would be no physical way for me to get rid of the Nibiru. If it gave me the token and my opponent the Nibiru, which I can understand why it doesn't, but if it did it that way, this deck would run free instantly. But because it's an effect monster you can't get rid of really easily, it is pointless to run Nibiru. The only time you'd run Nibiru is if you can run a land, wow, how the fuck are you supposed to pronounce that Link monster's name? If you can run one of those, then yeah, because you can technically link Nibiru with a normal summon Tenyi, go into the link 2, then because you now control no effect monsters, you can start doing your Tenyi plays, but it's too much effort just to run a Nibiru. So the hand traps I'm running is 2 Ash and 2 Ghost Ogre. Because you want to, you can't really stop the effect with Ghost Ogre, but it does stop your opponent's cards from staying on board, which is quite nice. And then Ash, I don't need to like say why I'm running Ash. Ash is just God. When it comes to hand traps, Ash is like one of the best. It's the most known hand trap. Yeah, I don't need to explain that. Now we're going into the spells and traps, my laddies. I don't know if that ding came out in the video, it probably did. So we've got the field spell. I would say this is one of the best field spells in the game. Kinda. But it's extremely specific. So basically, if I have a non-effect monster on the field when my opponent special summons, I get to draw 2, plus that non-effect monster cannot be targeted by effects or destroyed by it. Is it targeted or destroyed? It's one of the two. I remember that. It's unaffected in general. So you can even target it, but it just wouldn't do anything. So it's good for that, but as I said, it's very, like, you need to have non-effect monsters for this to even work. So for a normal deck, it's good, but for a non-normal deck, it's kind of crap. So what I mean by it's got is like one of the best field spells is because it has a really good effect of protection and drawing. The only other deck that I can think of that has that effect in a field spell is Sacred Beasts. So it's a good effect to the point that you always run free. You always run free, especially in Sacred Beasts even, because the field spell is searchable for one of their cards. So yeah, it's just a good effect all round. Next we have Vessel. Running free Vessel for the sheer effect of it, like you. Again, I'm explaining what they do as I'm going along because nobody reads these because nobody cared about these. So all the Tenyis are worms. WYRM. I think that's how you're supposed to pronounce it. I don't even know what that's supposed to represent because like machines represent machines and zombies and whatnot, but worm, I have no idea. But anyway, basically Vessel allows you to send a worm to the grave. Then, if you control a non-effect monster, you get to add one with a different name to hand as well. So it basically dumps and adds, which is really good in this deck because you dump Ashuna, add Adhara. Or, yeah, and that's basically, this is a 1-card synchro for that one reason. So you run free because you never not want to see it because it's really good. Next card is one that I have less of a stable argument for. Free Heavenly Circle. Heavenly Dragon Circle. I run it because it's more of a when you set up kind of card. So what you do is you go into the link 1 non-effect, activate this, and then get its effect off. So what this does is you tribute a worm, then you get to add a worm to hand. But if the worm that you tributed was a non-effect, you get to special summon it. So when I say this is a late game card, is you go into the link 1, tribute it, special summon a worm from your deck, and then that allows you to dump that worm into the graveyard to do additional plays. So like, say I no longer have access to an Ashuna, or I didn't have access to an Ashuna to begin with, I would normal summon, go into the link 1, Heavenly, well I wouldn't normal summon, special summon, Heavenly, tribute the link 1, go into Ashuna into the link 1, now I've got an Ashuna engraved for later extending my plays. So it basically just replaces a Tenyi in that sense. So it, yeah, you run free because it never hurts to see it, but obviously it does kind of, you could be running something else. So that's the weakest argument one I have. Next, I have free Pot of Desires because the extra deck, there's nothing really you want to banish at all. so Extravagance doesn't work. Also, you can't add to hand, so Atara would be fucking useless at that point. But Pot of Desires, you're running 3 of everything. It's the best way to draw 2 and increase your chance of drawing into something that you need. That you can run in tenyis at the moment. So, yeah, no, that's good. Because obviously Special Summon lockdown by Pot of Duality is also really bad for this deck. And your graveyard's filled, but it's filled with monsters that you want to keep in there. So Avarice isn't great either. Next we have 1-for-1, basically to get the Atara out. So with Atara, you can just basically, you know, go off on 1. So 1-for-1 to tribute a level 7 in hand that you can't use. And then obviously because it's in graveyard, you can use its effect in grave. So 1-for-1 doesn't really hurt the deck because the effects that you can use from hand, you can use from grave as well. So literally just send the fucker to the graveyard, continue to use its effect, plus you can get your level 1 out. So it's a plus in this deck. There's literally no cost in a sense. Next we're running Fist of Unrivaled Tenyi. Again, I have to explain because probably no one's read Tenyi. Obviously, if you have, then fair enough. Ignore me doing these explanations. But for those who haven't, which is a good portion of people, basically you activate this trap when your opponent activates a spell or a trap while you control a non-effect, negate the activation. But if this is destroyed while it's face down, you can special summon a non-effect from your extra deck. Just straight up from the extra deck, and there's some pretty good non-effects in the extra deck. So it's kind of a Waking the Dragon, but it's also a like Time Thief Retrograde in that sense, where it just negates a spell or trap while you control a specific monster. Doesn't have an additional effect, but it has the Waking the Dragon effect, which counts as an additional, so it's quite good. Then this one again is going to be contested, but I personally only run 2 Waterfall because it's kind of slow. And that's a lot coming from this deck, but it's kind of slow because, yeah, you can search a worm, but by that point that you've got it, you've already set up. You don't really need to search the worm. So I only run 2 because it's still good. It's just kind of slow, so I don't want to run 3. If it sounds stupid, if there's like a way to plus properly from it rather than just 1-for-1 trading, then yeah, but because it's like a straight up 1-for-1 trade, it's not as good. Next, we're going to go into the actual extra deck. One card in here I never go into, so I might replace it, so let that be known when I put these down. But we have our 3 Synchros. I tend to only go into 1, but obviously they're there if I do decide to add Hara and link the 7s into even more Synchros. Synchro is really good. Basically, if your opponent activates a monster effect while I control at all, I don't think it's even while you have the non-effect. Yeah, just doesn't care if you have a non-effect. Just if they activate a monster effect, banish it. It's a once per turn, a hard once per turn, but it's still, oh, you activate that effect. Get rid of the fucker, please. So what you could do is like your opponent, I don't know, summons their really big combo piece. Like I'm gonna go for hires because I'm a scrub. But if they summon like beat effect special, berserker effect, banish it. Sure, they get the special summon, but they don't get the search. And then because they've already used beats effect once that turn, they can't go into it again. So it's kind of a more powerful Ghost Ogre in that sense, because it banishes rather than just, you know, send it to grave. Next we have 3 Monk of the Tenyi. This is the Link 1 non-effect. So basically this is the Link 1 that you go into most, well, it's the only Link 1 you have, but basically you just yeet this on board. You now have a non-effect. You can now do all your non-effect plays with the Tenyis, which is really nice. It's not the only non-effect in the extra deck, which is quite nice. But first we're going into another effect, which is Shaman. I go into every single one of these in a duel most times, so the 3 is needed. Same with Monk. So Shaman is discard a card, special summon a is it a worm or is it a Tenyi? A worm, just a worm in general, and special summon it to the field. So you could potentially somehow go into the True Kings And then this will just get you your True King back, which is fucking funny. But this is mostly just to extend your plays. You don't usually keep it on the board for long, so its other effect doesn't really matter much. But if you do want to know what it is, and I'm definitely have to read this because I don't use it much. When an attack is declared involving a face-up non-effect, I can target a card my opponent controls and destroy it. It's a good effect, it's just this is never really on board when I attack. So I never have a use for it. And also, it does restrict when you special summon from grave, you can only special summon Tenyis for the rest of the turn. But again, this entire deck is Tenyi. It's not like you're going to randomly go into an Appaloosa. I can understand why they put it in there so you don't go into an Appaloosa, but you don't really do it anyway. This is a card that I never go into. Draco. I run 2 because even though I don't go into it, I know one time I'm going to need to go into this. So if you don't know what its effect is, it's basically can't destroy by battle with an effect monster, which is really good for a 2,600 attack point monster anyway. But also, you can just if I control no other effect monsters, hence why I don't really run it because I'm always going into like the synchro. But if I control no other effect monsters, I can destroy. Is it destroy or banish? I can destroy effect monsters my opponent controls up to the number of non-effects I control and in my graveyard. So obviously I've gone into Monk to go into this, and then obviously I'll probably have another Monk or the other Link free or a token, and obviously that's kind of good. I'm not going to say it's a bad card. It's just I never play it. I never go into it. I've never had a reason to go into it, other than I've at one point gone into it just so I can go, lol, I've summoned all my Tenyis from my extra deck at least once, now I'm going to kill you. Next we have the non-effect Link free, which is Berserker, which I'm running at 2. It's a 3k beat stick that, because this is very non-effect monster supporting, actually is probably better than a fair few beat sticks at the moment. Because you'll have stuff like Blue Eyes will have Alternative, which gets 1 pop and is a 3k beat stick that's really easy to bring out, but Berserker is fairly easy to bring out still. Cannot be targeted because of the field spell. With the next thing that comes out, also gives more protection, plus the fact that there's all the banishing effects I can do with the Tenyis in the main deck. I would say this is a better card than than Blue Eyes Alternative, just because of the support it's got. Obviously, Blue Eyes has a ton of support, but nothing that directly supports an effect 3k dragon that's Blue Eyes Alternative exactly. If anything, that's more the support than it is the supported. That's extremely supported. I do like that card a lot. Next, and finally, the one that came out in Dual Overload, the Link 4. This card is really dumb. So basically, once per turn, quick effect, so it can be your opponent's turn too. You can target an effect monster your opponent controls and special summon a token with the exact same attack. So this not only has good protection effects for if you have a non-effect monster, but it straight up summons one. And a good one too, because it like copies your opponent's most powerful monster's attack. It is a targeting effect though, so you do have to be kind of wary about that. But other than that, it's good. And then its other effect is, while I control a non-effect monster, your opponent cannot control effect monsters you control for attacks or effects. Let me say that again. If you have a non-effect, all effects you have are now straight up just protected from pretty much anything. Other than non-effect destroying, that is so good. And then this mixed with the field spell, so the best they can do is attack over a normal monster, and then even then you can have a Nahata engrave. So good. It's so fucking good. There's no reason not to go into it. In fact, this is 9 times out of 10, because of the resources it takes to make it, that there is my end board. Just one of them. Because then I can, during my opponent's turn, give myself a non-effect, and then have its effect live, and then have the field spell live. And yeah, no, that is a really good card. In fact, I am tempted, if I can find something to take out for it, I'm going to put Terraforming in so I can get into the field spell easier as well, because this is just so dumb. in the best fucking way possible. It's just so dumb. I love it. And this is why Tenyi is, in my opinion, the most slept on deck in Yu-Gi-Oh right now. Because it's not amazing. It's not like it's going to break everyone's fucking minds and it's going to break an Eldlick board with like an infinite impermanence and this, that, and the other. But it does have its moments. It can beat a fair few decks. And it's cheap as fuck. Literally, as you saw, all of that extra deck was tenyi cards. So that entire extra deck, plus the majority of the cards in here, £30. A couple of cards in there, I paid, like, let's have a look. What? So £30, right? For all of the tenyi cards. And then past all the monsters, we have the hand traps. You can pick up an Ash Blossom for like a £5 each. Ghost Ogre you could probably pick up for like £2 or £1 depending on the rarity. And even then you can just run another generic hand trap or like something else. Then again, tenyi cards, tenyi cards, tenyi cards. Pot of Desires, it's been reprinted so many times, even in a structure deck, so it's like £1 each. 1 for 1, been reprinted so many times, again in a structure deck, so it's like £1. And then again, I'm counting even Waterfall as a tenyi card because the £30 even covered that. So this entire deck added together would probably, if you built it the exact same way I built it, would probably cost you about £40, £45. That's so cheap. Because normally 40 to £45 is just for the main deck when it comes to cheap decks. But that's including extra. That's it. Your entire deck's complete for £45. A cheap deck normally is, what, £45 for main and then about 30 to £40 for extra. So you're looking at just under 100. And they're like, oh yeah, that's cheap. That's a cheap deck. Tenyi! It's so dumb, absurdly cheap for how kind of good it is. And that's why I think it's slept on. If anybody who's watching this right now has ever bought Rising Rampage, if you bought Rising Rampage to look for that Appaloosa, you most likely have a majority of what you need here. Because I think, let's have a look. Again, I'm just doing this. I think my Adharas were from the movie pack tins, like the MP20s. So were the Ashunas, but again, I think they were printed in Rising Rampage anyway. All the others were in the main, I think. Yeah, all the other main deck monsters were. And then the Field Spell was, the Vessel was, Heavenly Dragon Circle was in Rise of the Duelist. So it weren't in Rising Rampage like the rest. The Trap was in Rising Rampage. Yeah, Waterfall Dragon Souls was MP18, so I don't know. I know obviously that's like 2018-10, but I don't know if it was in anything else before then or even cheaper. And then the Synchro was MP20. Monk is Rising Rampage. Shaman is Movie Pack 20. Mega Pack 20, sorry. So is Draco Masters, but Berserker is Rising Rampage. So again, there's a lot of this, not all of it, but a lot of it is in Rising Rampage. So if you search for that Appaloosa, you probably only even have to spend like 10 to 15 quid to complete this. And I love it. Because I will admit, I bought a fair few Rising Rampage looking for the Appaloosa. Never got it. I ended up trading it off someone, but I had a fair bit of this deck. I obviously got rid of it in bulk, and hence why I rebought all the stuff, but I did genuinely have a lot of tenyi. And I just never thought to build it. And now I have. I've been having a lot of fun and kind of success with this. So, again, not saying take it to a fucking tournament or whatever, but oh boy, is it fun. And it's really, really budget. Which not a lot of decks can say. So, even for like 40 quid, it's worth having a try. It really is. It's such a good deck. Now, that being said, I'm selling mine. No, I'm not selling mine. Could you imagine that as an advertisement, though? Like, yeah, this deck's really amazing. It's kind of cheap. By the way, I'm selling mine at 78 quid. But yeah, no. Generally, if you've got the spare money and you're like, I want to build a deck, I want it to be cheap, I want it to be about as cheap as the structure decks, but I have all the structure deck ones, pick up Tenyi. It's about the same price. It's phenomenal how much this is slept on. Because I barely see anything about it. And, so good. So good. Thank you guys for watching. This has been a longer one, but I hope you enjoyed anyways, and I will see you in the next one. Ta-ta.